Welcome to the Tournament Center. I'm Randy Buehler here with Brian David Marshall. 16 rounds of Pro Tour Yokohama are in the books, and we have one hell of a top 8 queued up for tomorrow's webcast.
Yeah, it was a really gripping final round of play, and it's just led to a tremendous top 8 with tons of experience.
Yeah, it's funny, as those last couple of rounds and the top 8 were coming together, you can see a lot of the named pros were just saying, wow, this format's awesome. I mean, a lot of people judge the quality of a new constructed format by how well do the skilled players do. You know, and this is Time Spiral Planar Chaos block constructed, first crack at a new format, and you saw just awesome name after awesome name. There's 23 top 8 scattered amongst those 8 players, almost 3 apiece.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And, I mean, there were a lot of decisions to be made coming into the tournament about what to play.
Definitely.
Were there going to be control decks? Was it going to be the white weenie decks that were dominating on Magic Online?
Right.
And then once you got here, there are just tons of decisions to be made. All the matches were very skill intensive.
Yeah,
control on control mirrors, beatdown on beatdown mirrors, control versus beatdown mirror matches that are. And over the course of 16 rounds, you saw the less experienced players slowly get polished away until you had this sculpture of a perfect top 8.
Yeah, it wasn't really about deck matchups. It was about play skill, which was awesome. Nice to see. The story on day 1 was very much White Weenie and the White Weenie reaction. That Magic Online Premier event Brian was talking about, 8 out of 8 slots claimed by White Weenie. Everybody showed up ready to beat White Weenie. And so what happened on day 1 is that you saw red decks, red-green decks, Teferi-based control decks rise to the top of the Swiss. And then day 2, okay, now it was all about who could play better and who could beat the other guy and who could figure out how to use their deck, not to beat White Weenie, but to beat everybody else.
And who had a Game 2 and Game 3 game plan.
Absolutely. That's something the Japanese really perfected a couple years ago. You saw it in Katsuhiro Mori's run to the world title. They would show up with sort of 2 different decks shuffled together. You'd have the anti-beatdown deck ready for day 1, and then on day 2, the Japanese love to have that ability to sideboard into a more control-ish deck, win the control mirror on day 2.
Right. It was interesting. We talked to Mark Herberholtz, and he talked about how he tried to have a very Japanese approach to constructing his deck to have some really unexpected ideas after sideboarding. So.
All right. Well, enough teasing. Let's look at this top 8. The marquee matchup in my mind got to be Masashi Oiso versus Mark Herberholtz. Those guys are going to square off in the quarterfinals. Masashi Oiso, this guy, you know, he's like, I was great, and then he took, you know, for a year, he wasn't really coming to all the Pro Tours. He showed up, he's like, hi, I'm still great. Still Masashi Oiso, top 8 number 6.
Puts him into an elite class that is John, Kai, Darwin, Nassif, and now Masashi Oiso.
That's it.
We were teasing him that he was trying to come back because Kenji, his sort of protege, caught him with 5 top 8s. So we said, so who's better, you or Kenji? And he said, right now, Kenji.
He thought about it.
He thought about it.
Now Kenji.
Now Kenji. And they were like, oh, really? Well, all time, who's better, Masashi Oiso or Kenji Samura? And he said, so.
Yeah, he very much Kenji's mentor.
Yes, absolutely.
People forget that sometimes.
And he's really thrown himself into that mix for the argument of the 3rd or 4th greatest Magic player of all time.
Mark Herberholtz, by the way, top 8 number 4 for him. That's pretty good.
It's a Hall of Fame career.
Starting to shape up, might be. So let's go look at the next quarterfinal matchup. Here's a couple of guys that Sebastian Thaler, I was surprised. This is his first top 8, but he won Rookie of the Year last year. He almost made top 8 in Geneva.
How does Kenji Samura figure into every every discussion?
Kenji played Dream Wrecker in Geneva. Thaler could have drawn in, but Kenji was trying to play to help a friend. Knocks Thaler out. This time around, Thaler snuck in as the 8th seed. A couple of draws in the last round open up the window. Karsten drew himself out. Morita and Tenenbaum drew themselves out. And all of a sudden, you got a spot for Sebastian Thaler.
Reigning Rookie of the Year.
Playing against Kazuya Mitamura, who put up a top 4 in Team Constructed back in Charleston.
Block Constructed.
Absolutely. Next quarterfinal match. Another couple of guys that have really started coming to their own. Guillaume Wafotapa. We've been talking about this guy since Honolulu.
You might not know him, but you play his decks.
Absolutely. Exactly right. His first top 8, but he's got top 16s, he's got decks. People know this guy.
in Hawaii, and his deck, the Wafotapa control deck, became a tournament staple for almost a full year.
He'll be playing Paulo Carvalho in the quarterfinals.
Who's got a world's top 8.
World's top 8, yeah. Now let's look at this last. You're going to have to talk about awesome matchups. Raphael Levy had gone 9 years without winning a Grand Prix, pulled that off, wins a second Grand Prix in the qualifier season to catch this, hadn't made a top 8 at a Pro Tour in 8 years, did that. This guy's been just on fire since he got into the Hall of Fame.
And certainly thrown himself into the argument of just, I mean, people having a great constructed year I mean,
Yeah.
we've got another constructed Pro Tour this year, so he's got to feel really good about.
And there's
prospects
Tomohiro
for this
Saito.
team.
What is this, top 8, number 4 for
This
him?
is top 8, number 4 for him. So you got 7 top 8s right in this matchup.
Unbelievable. So the decks that rose to the top of the Swiss, pretty interesting. 3 of the sort of blue-black to fairy-based control decks. You know, you've got, you know, whether you splash white, whether you splash black, still the same basic deck. 3 copies of that, Minamura, Herberholz, and Wafotapa. And then you've got 5 different takes on base red aggro. They're all kind of like, maybe you go mono red, that's the way Levy set it up. Saito has just barely a touch of green, all the way over to Paulo Carvalho, who's flashed huge monsters with Lotus Blooms. Toller has got 32 mana cards in his deck, so he can go 4 Hellkite, 3 Spectral Force, Disintegrates. Just huge uppercuts and knockout punches coming out of those
And
decks.
Oiso has a slightly more mid-range approach.
Yeah,
on
with
that,
Call of the Herd.
Taking Call of the Herd, but also disintegrating, and so very
3
exciting.
different takes on control, 5 different takes on base red aggro. No white weenie decks anywhere to be found, but 8 spectacular players. Going to be an awesome Sunday. Brian is going to be there. I'm going to be there. The streaming webcast is going to be going. The archives will be ready after the fact. Stay tuned. We'll see how Pro Tour Yokohama plays out. For Brian David Marshall, this is Randy Bueller signing off from the Tournament Center.
Your road to Worlds begins with regionals. This is your shot at a nationals invite. Your country is calling. Are you going to answer? For more information, go to www.wizards.com/regionals.